My wife said she was having dinner with coworkers, but a stranger sent me a photo that proved everything was a lie.
The chat popped up on my screen just as I was about to sleep. It was from my wife, and it was unusually late for her. She sent a picture of a dimly lit restaurant, claiming she was out with her coworkers. But something about the angle felt off, like she was intentionally framing the shot to hide who she was really with. My gut churned. I asked her who took the photo. She ignored the question. Instead, she sent a heart emoji, like a cheap bandage over a wound that was already starting to fester. My chest tightened with a suspicion I desperately didn't want to entertain. I stayed awake, waiting for the sound of her key in the lock, but she never came home. Morning arrived before she did. When she finally walked in, she smelled of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She smiled as if nothing had happened and asked why I was up so early. I told her I hadn't slept at all. She just shrugged, as if my sleepless night was a personal choice I'd made just to annoy her. She kissed my cheek, a light, rehearsed gesture that felt hollow. Her excuse was that her phone battery had died, but I couldn't help but notice she kept it face down on the counter. I asked again about the restaurant, but she dismissed it with a practiced ease that sent a chill down my spine. Something inside me cracked, silently. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. A photo of her at that same restaurant, sitting far too close to another man. His hand was resting on the back of her chair, possessive, like it belonged there. My stomach dropped as if gravity had suddenly doubled. I zoomed in, studying every pixel, desperately searching for an alternate explanation, for anything that could prove my eyes wrong. But there was none. The message included a single, brutal line. "You deserve to know." I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, unable to breathe. When she texted me again that afternoon, her words felt like lies wrapped in casual sweetness. She asked if I could pick up groceries on my way home. I typed back, "Sure," my hands shaking so violently I could barely hit the letters. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to scream, to demand answers. But a quiet, cold voice in the back of my mind whispered to wait. People always reveal their true selves when they think they've won. I walked into the house that evening and saw her laughing at something on her phone. She looked up, startled, like a kid caught with their hand in the cookie jar. She immediately locked the screen before I could even glance at it. The time for waiting was over. I asked her directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" She froze for a fraction of a second before a loud, scoffing laugh escaped her lips. She told me my insecurity was exhausting. She claimed that if I truly loved her, I would trust her without question. The accusation twisted like barbed wire around my ribs. I told her trust isn't blind, and she just rolled her eyes dismissively. She walked away, muttering under her breath that I was becoming paranoid. The worst part was that a part of me, a small, desperate part, wished she was right. That night I found myself looking at her tablet. My eyes landed on an app I'd never noticed before. It was disguised as a calculator, just like in those unbelievable stories people tell about cheaters. One wrong swipe, one accidental gesture, and the gallery opened like a confession. Dozens of messages, photos, voice recordings, a library of evidence more brutal than anything I could have imagined. She told him she wished she could spend every night in his arms. She told him I was useful but boring. She laughed about how easy it was to lie to me. My heart didn't just break. It shattered into a million pieces. Yet, I kept scrolling, compelled by a need to see the full extent of the wreckage. I waited until she came into the room. I held her tablet out to her without saying a single word. She froze, the blood draining from her face. She whispered my name, as if that one word could somehow rewind time and undo everything. She stammered, "It's not what it looks like." My voice was flat, empty. "Then explain which part of this isn't betrayal." She reached for excuses like a drowning person grabbing at air, each one more pathetic than the last. I told her I needed space and walked out before the walls of our home could close in on me. I drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring into a silver haze through my tears. My phone buzzed nonstop with her calls, but I let them ring out, one after another. I finally parked in an empty lot and just stared at the steering wheel until my eyes burned. I remembered the early days of our relationship when her smile felt like actual sunlight. Now it felt like a mask built to hide knives. I wondered how long she had been slipping away without me even noticing. How much of our life together had been a performance. I wondered if I would ever feel steady on my own 2 feet again. She was waiting for me when I returned home. Her eyes were swollen and red, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She swore she'd ended things with him months ago, but didn't delete the messages because she was afraid I'd find them and get the wrong idea. The logic was so twisted it was almost impressive. Desperate people will stitch any lie into something that resembles reason. She begged me to believe her, even as her voice cracked with the weight of her own guilt. She tried to touch my arm, but I instinctively stepped back. Trust, once it's broken, tastes like metal and ash in your mouth? I told her I needed the truth, not stories designed to make her feel better. And then, finally, she confessed. The affair started when she felt invisible, she said. He made her feel alive in ways she claimed I didn't. She said she never expected it to go so far, that she regretted everything. Her voice kept breaking like glass under pressure. I listened, not because I was looking for an apology, but because I needed answers for myself. I had to know why. I asked her why she mocked me in her messages to him. She looked down at the floor and said she didn't want to disappoint him. Those words hit me harder than any of the others. Betrayal was one thing, but this was humiliation. She asked if there was any chance we could fix us. I looked at her and said, "Broken bones can heal, but shattered trust does not." She sobbed like her world was ending, but mine had already ended long before that night. I told her we would have to figure out how to move forward, but separately. Her silence was louder than any scream. She finally just whispered that she understood. I packed a bag and left before dawn. The sky was still dark, but for the first time in months, I felt lighter. I had no idea what future was waiting for me, but I knew, at the very least, it would be an honest one. I drove away without looking back. As the sun began to rise behind me, it felt like a quiet promise. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer felt like a cage. And somewhere deep down, I felt the very first pulse of freedom. And this time, I trusted that feeling.